Hello, and welcome to the World War Lab channel. Summer 1943. Camp Crossville, Tennessee. The brown liquid bubbling and hissing inside the glass bottle held the German soldier's full attention. He had never seen anything like it before. After 2 years of fighting in North Africa, surviving on hard army biscuits and ersatz bitter coffee, this sweet, carbonated drink called Coca-Cola felt like something unreal, like a fantasy made solid. It cost 5 cents at the camp canteen. The guards told him the same amount American children paid from their weekly allowances. That simple fact alone was difficult to process. A drink that tasted this rich and exotic was treated as an ordinary childhood purchase in America. Across prison camps throughout the United States that summer, some 371,683 German prisoners of war were confronting a reality that directly contradicted everything Nazi propaganda had taught them about American weakness and decay. They discovered a country where ice cream was an everyday dessert, where soft drinks were a normal part of daily life, where candy bars were so common that guards casually handed them out. These small luxuries, foods most German children had never tasted even once, began to dismantle Nazi ideology more effectively than any counter-propaganda campaign ever could. The arithmetic of abundance was written in sugar and carbonation, in chocolate and ice cream, revealing an American industrial power that made German deprivation appear not like heroic sacrifice, but like needless suffering. What started as simple amazement at American sweets slowly evolved into a complete psychological transformation. The end of the Desert War began this process. The surrender of the Afrika Korps in Tunisia in May 1943 brought roughly 250,000 German and Italian soldiers into Allied captivity. These hardened veterans, who had once driven British forces back toward Egypt under Rommel's command, expected brutal treatment as prisoners. Nazi propaganda had prepared them for American cruelty, starvation, and revenge. Instead, within hours of their surrender, they encountered American rations. These field meals, which American soldiers themselves often complained about, were filled with what felt like treasures: crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. For German soldiers who had survived on minimal supplies for months, these emergency rations were feasts. Military records show that at the processing camps in North Africa, the U.S. Army served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods that had vanished from German military diets years earlier. The systematic feeding of enemies with superior food began immediately, although its full psychological effect would only be understood later. A German officer later told the International Red Cross, "We expected to be starved as prisoners. Instead, the Americans fed us better than our own army had." This confusion about American resources was the beginning of our education. That education continued aboard the Liberty ships carrying prisoners across the Atlantic in the summer of 1943. These vessels, mass-produced at unprecedented speed, with one completed every 42 hours at peak output, transported up to 30,000 prisoners each month to the United States. Naval records show that prisoner rations aboard these ships matched or even exceeded those of the regular crew, averaging around 3,500 calories per day. Meals included fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and coffee served with sugar and milk. The ships were equipped with refrigeration systems, standard on American vessels, which kept food fresh throughout the entire crossing. Most astonishing of all, multiple documented accounts confirm that ice cream was served on several Atlantic voyages. The log of the USS General M.B. Stewart from July 1943 records that ice cream was served to prisoners on July 4th, using the ship's ice cream machine that produced 10 gallons per batch. For men who had not seen ice cream since before the war, eating frozen dessert in the middle of the ocean felt almost impossible to comprehend. It shattered everything they thought they understood about scarcity and hardship. When the ships docked at ports such as Norfolk and Newport News, German prisoners encountered an America that Nazi propaganda had insisted could not exist. The Norfolk Naval Base alone covered 4,300 acres and handled more cargo in a single day than major German ports managed in an entire week. At port exchanges and shops for dock workers, prisoners caught glimpses of shelves stacked with candy bars from famous manufacturers like Hershey, Mars, and Nestle. Military procurement records from 1943 show that these exchanges stocked dozens of candy varieties, sold at standard prices, usually 5 cents per bar, the same price charged everywhere in America. The train journey inland offered yet another lesson. Unlike the crowded cattle cars used for transport in Europe, German prisoners traveled in proper passenger coaches. Dining cars served full meals. Surviving menus from July 1943 list fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. The prisoners soon realized this was not special treatment reserved for them. It was simply how Americans travel by rail. The prison camp system built across the United States housed prisoners in conditions that often exceeded the requirements of the Geneva Convention. Camp Crossville, Tennessee, which was typical of the larger facilities, had electric lighting, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. Yet it was the camp exchanges, the PX stores, that delivered the strongest shock. According to U.S. Army quartermaster records, these exchanges stocked multiple soft drink brands such as Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and RC Cola, along with many kinds of candy bars and sweets, ice cream where refrigeration allowed, cigarettes and tobacco, fresh fruit, snacks, and even beer with 3.2% alcohol content. Prisoners earned 80 cents per day for their labor, later raised to $1. With candy bars priced at 5 cents and Coca-Cola costing the same, a single day's wages could buy 16 separate items. This level of abundance was beyond anything German soldiers could imagine, where such products, if available at all, required special connections or black market access. Coca-Cola quickly became the symbol of American industrial democracy. The Coca-Cola Company's wartime production reached staggering levels. Company records show that in 1943 alone, 5 billion bottles were produced. The military contract guaranteed 5-cent Coca-Cola to American servicemen anywhere in the world, a promise that demanded enormous logistical effort. German prisoners discovered that this drink, unknown to most of them before their capture, was absolutely everywhere in America. Every camp received regular shipments. Work details observed vending machines and coolers at gas stations, factories, and schools. Americans of all ages and social classes drank it casually, as if such abundance were the most natural thing in the world. Discarding half-empty bottles without a second thought, this casual waste stunned the more technically minded prisoners. Coca-Cola tasted exactly the same whether it was drunk in Maine or in Texas, an achievement in quality control that surpassed anything German industry had ever managed. The syrup concentrate was produced in Atlanta and distributed nationwide to bottling plants, a level of industrial coordination that directly challenged Nazi beliefs about American disorder and inefficiency. Historical records from the Coca-Cola Company archives confirm that many prison camps received weekly deliveries of between 200 and 300 cases, each case holding 24 bottles. Camp Hearn in Texas alone consumed around 7,000 bottles every single week during the summer of 1943. Ice cream in American prison camps seemed completely impossible to Germans who had not seen it since before the war. Yet U.S. Army records confirm that ice cream was regularly served in camps that had sufficient refrigeration during the summer months. The military considered ice cream essential for morale, so important that specialized ice cream ships were even built for the Pacific Fleet. At Camp Shelby in Mississippi, the July 4th, 1943 celebration included ice cream made directly on site. Prisoners watched as hand-cranked freezers produced gallons of it using ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings. The casual use of what Germans considered scarce resources, ice in July, cream, and sugar for a purely recreational food, demonstrated priorities they could not comprehend. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream machines. The range of flavors available, chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, butter pecan, went beyond what most German ice cream parlors had offered even before the war. Prisoners could buy ice cream bars for 10 cents, ice cream sandwiches for the same price, or cups of different flavors. Army procurement records show that larger camps order between 50 and 100 gallons of ice cream each week during the summer. The exact frequency varied by location and season, but prisoners regularly enjoyed this frozen luxury that had long vanished from daily life in Germany. Sugar consumption inside American prison camps delivered one of the most powerful shocks of all. In Germany, sugar was tightly rationed. Civilians received about 280 grams per month when it was available at all. In American camps, sugar sat openly in bowls on mess hall tables, free for unlimited use. Quartermaster records from 1943 to 1945 show camps receiving 100-pound bags of refined sugar every week. Camp bakeries used it generously. Cakes, cookies, and pies appeared regularly on menus. Coffee, tea, cereals, and desserts were sweetened without restriction. One documented incident from Camp Aliceville, Alabama, shows the contrast vividly. In August 1943, humid weather caused several hundred pounds of sugar to harden into solid blocks, making it difficult to use. Instead of steaming it and recovering it, as German kitchens would have done, the American staff simply discarded the sugar and ordered replacement supplies. German prisoners working in the kitchen were reportedly distressed by what they saw as unimaginable waste. American chocolate consumption revealed another layer of democratic abundance. Major manufacturers such as Hershey, Mars, and Nestle produce millions of bars every month despite wartime restrictions. The U.S. military alone purchased 380 million pounds of chocolate products during the war years. Prison camp exchanges stocked multiple chocolate varieties. Standard Hershey bars, rationed chocolate, emergency bars, and many kinds of chocolate-based candy sold for between 5 and 10 cents. Prisoners discovered that Americans had personal preferences among chocolate brands and casually chose one over another, something unthinkable in a society of scarcity. Red Cross packages distributed monthly to prisoners also included chocolate bars among other items. American Red Cross records show that standard parcels contained chocolate or candy bars, instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, soap, and other necessities. These packages supplemented regular rations and provided luxury items that exceeded what German civilians received as basic allowances. Thanksgiving 1943 introduced German prisoners to American holiday abundance. This uniquely American celebration demonstrated a national coordination of consumption that dwarfed anything Germany had attempted. Army records confirm that every prison camp served a traditional Thanksgiving dinner. Roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. The logistics required to provide turkey dinners to 425,000 prisoners, alongside millions of American servicemen worldwide, displayed organizational capacity on a staggering scale. The fact that German prisoners received the same meal as American soldiers emphasized the quality of treatment and directly contradicted Nazi racial ideology. Christmas 1943 brought an even more unexpected lesson through civilian generosity. Church groups, civic organizations, and private individuals sent packages to German prisoners. The American Friends Service Committee alone distributed 50,000 Christmas packages to enemy captives. These packages usually contain homemade cookies, candy, toiletries, games, books, cigarettes, and writing materials. Local communities near camps often added their own contributions. In Tonkawa, Oklahoma, townspeople delivered homemade treats to German prisoners at Camp Tonkawa. In Hearne, Texas, church groups brought Christmas cookies and candy to Camp Hearne. This kindness from civilians toward enemies challenged Nazi ideology at its core. Americans who had family members fighting against Germany still showed compassion to German prisoners, demonstrating strength through mercy rather than revenge. As labor shortages intensified, German prisoners increasingly worked outside the camps, witnessing American food production with their own eyes. By 1944, about 100,000 prisoners were employed in agriculture and food processing, gaining direct knowledge of American abundance. In Michigan orchards, prisoners picked cherries destined for maraschino production, the bright red garnishes placed on top of ice cream sundaes. The sheer volume astonished them, with single orchards producing tons of fruit for what they considered purely decorative purposes. At canneries, prisoners watched quality control systems that rejected food which was still perfectly edible because of minor imperfections. Records from Del Monte in 1944 show that around 15% of fruit was rejected for canning simply due to irregular size or small blemishes, and was usually diverted to animal feed. To Germans who had lived with scarcity, the idea that good food could be discarded for cosmetic reasons was almost unimaginable. Sugar beet processing in Colorado and Nebraska revealed a level of agricultural mechanization far beyond anything in Germany. Individual American farms produced more sugar beets than entire German regions. Prisoners learned that total American sugar production, from both cane and beets, reached roughly 7 million tons annually, finally explaining the casual abundance they had seen everywhere. German prisoners who worked near schools witnessed early versions of organized school lunch programs. Children received hot meals that included milk, protein, and vegetables. The National School Lunch Act would formalize the system in 1946, but the foundations were already in place during the war. The milk program was especially impressive. Many schools provided fresh milk to children every single day. The logistics of delivering milk daily to thousands of schools demonstrated an organizational capacity Germany had failed to achieve even for military supplies. Some school cafeterias even offered ice cream for extra purchase. The idea that children could buy frozen desserts at school while German children faced hunger left a deep and painful impression on the prisoner observers. When minimum security prisoners ate in American diners under guard, they encountered another expression of democratic abundance. These small restaurants offered menus that in Germany would have belonged only to elite establishments, yet here were available to anyone with modest money. Documented prices from 1944 show hamburgers for 25 cents, Coca-Cola for 5 cents, a slice of pie for 15 cents, an ice cream sundae for 25 cents, and a full dinner special for 65 to 75 cents. The equality of service was striking. Anyone could order anything. A factory worker and a bank president sat at neighboring stools, eating the same meals served by the same waitress for the same price. This directly contradicted German ideas of rigid social hierarchy. As prisoners gained access to American newspapers and publications, they discovered production statistics that dwarfed anything Germany had achieved. Figures published for 1944 showed American sugar production at about 7 million tons. Chocolate and cocoa products reached 380 million pounds for military use alone. Coca-Cola production had already reached 5 billion bottles in 1943. Ice cream production exceeded 500 million gallons. Milk production reached 119 billion quarts. In contrast, German production in the same period showed sugar heavily rationed and primarily derived from beets. Chocolate restricted almost entirely to military priority. Soft drinks produced in minimal quantities. Ice cream virtually non-existent, and milk severely rationed. These numbers, published openly in American media, demonstrated that America's wartime production exceeded Germany's peacetime peaks. By late 1944, German prisoners of war were sending food packages to Germany instead of receiving them. Using their camp wages, they bought American products to mail home: chocolate bars, instant coffee, canned goods, and other foods. International Red Cross records confirmed this reversal. German prisoners in the United States sent approximately 11 million parcels back to Germany during their captivity, most of them containing food. The impact was devastating to Nazi ideology. Families in Germany received abundance from relatives who were imprisoned in enemy territory, while they themselves faced hunger in supposed freedom. American rationing during the war revealed the vast gulf between the two societies. Americans complained about sugar rations of 2 pounds per month per person, more than 3 times the German allowance when it was available at all. American meat rationing at 28 ounces per week per person exceeded what Germans received in an entire month. Even under rationing, Americans maintained consumption levels Germans considered unimaginable luxury. Office of Price Administration records show that Americans still purchased 74 pounds of sugar per capita in 1944, despite restrictions, roughly 10 times German consumption. Beyond Coca-Cola, prisoners discovered the full scale of America's soft drink industry. Pepsi Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and countless regional brands competed nationwide. The mere existence of multiple companies producing nearly identical products demonstrated a market abundance impossible under the tightly controlled German economy. Bottling plants operated in every major city. The technology of carbonation, bottling, capping, and labeling was standardized and highly efficient. Single plants produced millions of bottles per year. Distribution networks reached every small town, gas station, and grocery store. By the end of the war, American soft drink production reached billions of bottles annually, dozens of bottles for every citizen. This single industry alone surpassed entire sectors of German consumer production. Spring 1945 delivered the final blow. As American forces advanced through Germany, German prisoners in the United States watched newsreels showing U.S. soldiers giving chocolate and chewing gum to German children. The joy on those children's faces, receiving candy their own government could not provide, completed the ideological collapse. The contrast was unmistakable. American soldiers advanced through enemy territory with enough surplus to give sweets away, while the German state that had promised victory delivered starvation. Films showing the liberation of concentration camps revealed American troops sharing their own rations with skeletal survivors, showing compassion to the victims of the regime German soldiers had served. Between 1945 and 1946, German prisoners of war returned to a devastated homeland. Many had gained significant weight in American captivity, while their families had lost weight from hunger and German freedom. They returned carrying knowledge of abundance into a land of total scarcity. Medical examinations showed that German prisoners generally returned healthier than when they had been captured. They came back to families weakened by deprivation. This physical contrast between American plenty and German suffering was undeniable. Many prisoners brought their final Red Cross packages home with them. Chocolate, coffee, and canned goods became family treasures. Children who had forgotten the taste of chocolate received Hershey bars from fathers who had eaten ice cream regularly in prison camps. Former prisoners of war became unexpected supporters of the Marshall Plan. They had personally witnessed an American abundance that was not based on taking from others, but on producing more. Prosperity, in their experience, came from creation rather than conquest. Their testimony that Americans could afford to rebuild even their former enemies helped shape German acceptance of American aid. These men understood that American power came from productive capacity, not from extraction or domination. They had seen a society wealthy enough to waste food while still fighting a global war. This new mental model, production instead of plunder, deeply influenced West Germany's post-war economic thinking. The German economic miracle of the 1950s was built in part on lessons learned in American prison camps. Former prisoners who had observed American production methods, distribution systems, and consumer abundance applied those insights during Reconstruction. They had learned that mass production could make luxuries affordable, that standardization created both quality and efficiency, that consumer abundance generated political stability, and that industrial democracy could outproduce authoritarian control. These lessons, learned through experiences as simple as Coca-Cola and ice cream, shaped an entire generation of German business leaders and policymakers. The transformation of German prisoners through exposure to American food abundance is documented across many sources: military quartermaster records, international Red Cross reports, corporate production data, especially from Coca-Cola archives, prisoner correspondence that was censored but preserved, post-war interviews and memoirs, and academic studies, most notably the extensive research of Arnold Kramer. Kramer, regarded as the leading historian of German prisoners of war in America, concluded that food abundance was central to their ideological transformation. His work confirmed that casual American plenty achieved what formal re-education program could not: the complete destruction of Nazi myths of superiority. The statistics alone tell an undeniable story. For prisoners in American camps between 1943 and 1946, average daily calorie intake ranged from 3,300 to 3,600 calories. Sugar was freely available, roughly 4 pounds monthly. Meat rations reached about 32 ounces weekly. Milk was available at roughly 1 quart per day. Ice cream was served regularly during summer months. Soft drinks were unlimited, costing 5 cents each. For German civilians during the same period, daily calories averaged only 1,200 to 1,500. Sugar was rationed to about 280 grams per month when it was available at all. Meat averaged roughly 10.5 ounces per week and was often unavailable. Milk was severely rationed. Ice cream did not exist. Soft drinks were unavailable. These differences were not propaganda, but documented reality. Enemy prisoners consistently ate better than German civilians, proving that American abundance extended even to defeated foes. The prisoner experience with American food culture profoundly shaped post-war Germany. Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949 and quickly became a symbol of the American alliance. Ice cream parlors modeled after American soda fountains appeared in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became symbols of recovery and modernity. Former prisoners often became importers of American food products because they understood their appeal from personal experience. They knew these items represented more than taste. They symbolized abundance, democracy, and a new way of life. The introduction of supermarkets in Germany during the 1950s was strongly promoted by former prisoners who had seen American grocery stores. They understood that democratic abundance required not only higher production, but entirely new systems of distribution. In interviews and memoirs, German former prisoners consistently identified food abundance as transformative. One former Africa Corps officer said in a 1975 interview, "We expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, we found a nation that could give ice cream to its enemies. That was when we knew we had lost more than a war. We had lost our entire worldview." Another veteran, interviewed for a documentary in 1985, recalled, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future. It was sweet, fizzy, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany was not: abundant, democratic, joyful." These testimonies, collected over decades, confirm that American food abundance achieved what military defeat alone could not: complete ideological transformation. The men who arrived in America as convinced Nazi soldiers left as witnesses to democratic prosperity. Historians now recognize the German prisoner experience in the United States as one of the most successful examples of re-education through abundance rather than propaganda. It succeeded because it relied on observation, not instruction. Prisoners saw American society functioning at full productivity while treating its enemies with dignity. Food was central because it was universal. Everyone understands hunger and satisfaction. The proof was undeniable. Weight gain and improved health were visible. 3 full meals a day, combined with canteen purchases, made the contrast inescapable. German prisoners knew deprivation intimately. Every meal became a lesson in American industrial capacity. Every Coca-Cola demonstrated standardization and distribution. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be democratic. The children of prisoners of war grew up hearing stories about American abundance in the prison camps. At first, these stories sounded exaggerated, almost mythical. But as West Germany recovered and American products became widely available, the stories were confirmed. The legend of American plenty, born behind barbed wire, shaped generations of German-American relations. Many children of former prisoners later studied or worked in the United States. Drawn by their father's account of impossible abundance, they found reality matched the stories. Supermarkets filled with endless variety, soda fountains serving sundaes, candy aisles offering dozens of choices. This multi-generational influence extended beyond individuals. West German business culture absorbed lessons about consumer abundance, quality standardization, and democratic markets. The economic miracle was not only about increasing production, but about creating real abundance for ordinary citizens. Today, McDonald's operates more than 1,400 restaurants in Germany. Coca-Cola is everywhere. Ice cream is ordinary. The transformation from scarcity to abundance, which began in American prison camps, is now complete. Yet the historical lesson remains powerful. Ideological change through abundance rather than deprivation, kindness rather than cruelty, demonstration rather than propaganda. The German prisoners who could not believe their eyes when they saw ice cream and Coca-Cola in American prison camps had witnessed democracy's ultimate weapon, the ability to create such vast abundance that it could be casually shared even with enemies. The story of German prisoners and American food abundance represents one of history's most unusual victories, a war won through generosity, an ideology defeated by ice cream, a worldview shattered by soft drinks. These men were transformed not through punishment, but through plenty. They arrived believing in German superiority and American weakness. They left understanding that American strength came from productive capacity so immense it could afford to waste resources without fear. A society that could sell Coca-Cola to prisoners for 5 cents possessed a kind of power beyond military force. The ice cream sundae, with its layers of excess ice cream, syrup, whipped cream, nuts, and cherries, became a metaphor for American abundance. Each ingredient alone exceeded German expectations. Combined, they represented impossible luxury made routine. That prisoners could order seconds while German children faced hunger revealed the total collapse of Nazi promises. Former prisoners often recalled very specific moments of awakening: the fizz of their first Coca-Cola, the first spoonful of ice cream, the first bite of a Hershey bar. These sensory memories carried more power than any political argument. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. The transformation was complete and irreversible. Men who had once marched for the Third Reich returned as apostles of abundance, carrying the revolutionary message that prosperity came from freedom, not conquest. They had learned that America's true secret weapon was not military strength, but the ability to give ice cream to its enemies. In the end, bottles of Coca-Cola and dishes of ice cream served in American prison camps achieved what armies alone never could: the complete transformation of enemy hearts and minds. The German prisoners, who once could not believe such abundance existed, became its greatest witnesses. They carried home the truth that democracy tasted like chocolate and freedom fizzed like carbonation. Their story reminds us that sometimes the greatest victories are won not through destruction, but through demonstration, not through taking, but through giving, not through hatred, but through the simple act of serving ice cream to enemies on a hot summer day. The men who experienced American abundance as prisoners became freedom's most unlikely ambassadors, transformed forever by the impossible reality of Coca-Cola and ice cream in American prison camps. World War Lab.